Hi, welcome everyone to Uto Nwani. My name is Nachi. I'm 21, Nachi Chukwumerije. I'm 21 years old. My mom is Eukarya Chukwumerije, and my dad is Nkemdirim Chukwumerije.
Hi, my name is Chidera, Nachi's sister. I'm 19 years old, and our parents are the same. So Kem Chukwumerije and UK Chukwumerije.
Hi everyone, my name is Chigo Chukwu. I'm 24 years old. I currently live in Los Angeles. My parents are Emeka and Rahel Chukwu. My dad is the first son of BNT Chukwu and Azuka Chukwumerije. So today, the three of us will be talking about the second gen experience as Nigerian American young adults here in the States. It's such a broad conversation to have, and it's a very specific situation to each individual, but it's also a universally held experience that a lot can relate to. And we just wanted to bring discussion and dialogue to this topic. Nachi and Chidera, let's just get started. What does the Nigerian American experience mean to you?
Chidera, did you want to start first?
Sure. Yeah, I think the topic for sure is broad, but I think is central to who we are because obviously we're merging our Nigerian culture from our parents to this country that we now live in and we're raised in. And with that comes a lot of different expectations, different values that we have. Obviously, being raised in, at least for us in communities with primarily white people, and how we still try to be tied to our culture and implement that into our daily lives. So I know for me, for sure, there's definitely been several moments of reflection and understanding like the unique parts of my culture and kind of challenging aspect of like integrating it to my life and making sure that I stay true to who I am and how I was raised, in the midst of maybe being around people and a culture that doesn't necessarily support that. So I'm sure we'll get into that more in the future, but like broadly, that's kind of how I feel about the Nigerian American experience.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Chidera as well. Especially being like a second generation Nigerian, like we face just like many challenges, like because there's like a cultural clash between like our Nigerian roots and like also our American surroundings as well. So just like balancing like I guess the traditional values, like we used to live in the West Coast, like the Western lifestyle, and just like how it can create tension, and just like navigating amongst those like cultural expectations from both sides. So I feel like that is like my biggest challenge, and just like staying true to who I am. So
To piggyback off of those two thoughts, the Nigerian American experience to me is such a personal thing that I hold so dearly to my heart. It's something that people I interact with on an everyday basis, which happens to be white people, in regards to the area I live in and grew up in regards to the workplace. They don't have that experience. And it's not that I pity them, but I feel bad that they don't understand that cultural upbringing that is so like deeply rooted in my everyday life in regards to my outlook on life, in regards to how I define success in my life, in regards to the values I hold within myself. When I walk into a room, this can lead into our next discussion in regards to, talking about the American, Black, and Nigerian experience in the US. I have like a dual consciousness with certain things in regards to how I'm being perceived as a woman, how I'm being perceived as a Black woman, but then also how I'm being perceived as a Nigerian woman. Like, for example, you are a representation of your culture in rooms you go into. If you're succeeding, they're gonna be like, wow, like look at this Nigerian girl representing her community, representing her people. Like, and like when you fail, it's like at the same time, there are certain stereotypes, there are certain stigmas that will be pinned to your back, which is it's not your fault. It's not up to you to like represent the culture, but at the same time, you have this pressure almost in the back of your head to perform better for yourself, but also to represent your people because Nigerians, like we excel in so many different fields in regards to academics, art, sports, etc. So, it's cool because like we already have so much, I don't want to say clout for the older folks listening to this podcast, but almost credibility, when we walk into rooms that is, built off of our ancestors and our older family that have worked so hard overseas and in this country to build the representation the Nigerians have. But at the same time, there's so much pressure because, like us Nigerian American kids, like we're a little more sensitive. We take things more personally, and it's hard sometimes because there's that pressure from our parents to succeed, but also the pressure we put on ourselves to take care of ourselves. So it's kind of finding the balance in that. So Nachi and Chidera, what are your thoughts in trying to again balance out being American, being Black, but also being Nigerian?
I feel like for me, it's always been like a racial like identity thing because I'd say like I get like racialized as black in some environments and just like navigating and like amongst that some people will be like oh like like you said like oh she's a black woman and then on our Nigerian side oh like you must stand out as a Nigerian woman so just like facing those challenges because in the outside world I may be perceived as like a black woman and just like just it's more so just like balancing and like and getting comfortable around that. Because I used to struggle with that when I was younger. So yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, growing up, it was kind of difficult to, I guess, fit in like the different aspects. Like if I'm in, say, not an African American space, but like a black space in the US, people might say I'm whitewashed or speak in a
Right.
certain way or act in a certain way. Sometimes if I go to Nigeria, I feel like I'm too American and they're like, I'm looked at differently, um, just based off of that. So it's like, I found it difficult at first to figure out how to act in those different environments I'm in because all of that is a part of who I am. Um, so that was a challenge, but I think ultimately it's just a matter of like these are all a part of me and I'm gonna be who I am in whatever environment I'm in, accept my culture, accept where I live in and where I'm from and all of that.
Mm,
But I definitely think that um, being a first generation American, a lot of us deal with just kind of like figuring out how to act in different environments and how to interact with different people and what to say and what not to say, and how you're being perceived, like you mentioned, Chigo. But yeah, that's definitely been a large part of my experience.
Yeah, Chidera, you brought up a super valid point that I've had a lot of discussion on in my life in terms of whitewashing and being called a white girl and the classic, oh, you're an Oreo, you're black on the outside, white on the inside. Like, kids used to say that, family used to say that, and I never really let it get to me personally because I know who I am. I know my culture. I'm proud of my culture, and I have my own interests, and I don't think it's hard to say that the thing that I don't like about the whole whitewashing term is that why does every black woman, why does every Nigerian woman have to be the exact same,
exactly.
Women have different interests and it doesn't mean that you align more with one race or whatever. But I think as long as you hold your culture like with your heart on your sleeve and you're so proud and unapologetic about it, you know, you kind of just have to laugh it off. But that leads into an important topic of cultural assimilation in
Mm,
regards you know, balancing the two cultures. I know me personally, like growing up again, predominantly white areas, when I would have my friends over, I'd be like, oh my gosh, like my mom's cooking a goosey soup, like they're gonna smell everything and they're gonna make fun of me. But I'm like, if y'all could taste it, it's really good. Just give it a try. But at the same time, it's like there's always like this fear of judgment in the back of your head of your friends not
yeah.
understanding like where you come from. And kids are mean when you're young. Kids don't get it. They're very close-minded at like towards like the middle school years and you want to protect your culture because you have so much pride in it, but at the same time you want to indulge with it with your friends. So how have you guys balanced introducing friends outside of the Nigerian culture into your own And what are like certain activities or things you take pride in that you love, in regards to like sharing music or like, cultural wear and fashion and all that?
I feel like for me, you bring up a very good point, Chigo, because when I was like much younger and stuff, like just growing up in like predominantly white and like Hispanic like environments and stuff, I used to honestly be like feel embarrassed like for being Nigerian because people would be like, "Oh, like you guys have like your language sounds funny, your name sounds funny, like this sounds funny and whatnot." And then I remember that era like back in like 2018 or something or going into 2020-ish when Black Panther came out and everyone was like hyped up about this like big like Marvel like character who like symbolized like Africa and like how being African is great and everyone started loving the music and whatnot. So I guess just like when it comes to my friends, I know like I like to they love jollof rice, so just like making that with them and like playing Nigerian music and they're like, "Oh, this is good. This tastes good." And just having pride in that like, okay, wow, like my culture is actually so beautiful and it's so fun and as I get older, I start to embrace it more. I love the fashion and everything and honestly, like, a lot of people, like, they don't know where they're from, so, like, some of them, like, actually, like, look at us and they're, like, amazed and they're, like, like, "Wow, like, this is amazing, like, you guys have a really fun culture," and Afro beats is starting to become very popular now and stuff, so going to
It's crazy.
concerts with
That's so
friends.
mainstream.
Yeah, yeah. So, I love being Nigerian now and, like, I've come a long way, but yeah.
Yeah. Those were both great points. And I would say growing up, I was never really ashamed of being Nigerian. I would say I was just less connected to it. Because as you're growing up, like, where I was going to school and stuff and who I was around was primarily white environments, which is like fine. But like I think as you grow older and you have more of a relationship with your parents and they can talk to you more about their experience and you understand more about why it's important to you, I think it's very important to understand like why this is meaningful and like why this is a large part of who you are. So I think as I grew up, I became more connected to it and was able to embrace it more. And honestly, I've found that my friends in particular have been have just loved Nigerian culture. Like the other day, we were talking with my friend. I was talking to my friends, some of my teammates about um, kind of speaking Igbo and how I'm able to understand what my parents are saying in Igbo, but I'm not allowed to speak it back. And they were like asking me to say a few words in Igbo, and they were like so amazed and thought it was so cool. Um, and just at a party like a few weekends ago, like being able to share some of like Nigerian music with them. There was another guy from Ghana, so we were both able to like introduce it to the group, which was cool. And like it's nice to see people who embrace it and support it. So I think I've had more experiences of people accepting it than versus not, but that's just my personal experience.
No, I agree because again, there's been such a shift of African culture, but also like Nigerian culture going mainstream in regards to fashion, food, music. I mean, for example, we've seen artists like Burna Boy blow up over the past few years. And for me personally, like I went to Coachella 2023 and my friends went to Burna Boy set with me and they're like, this is lit. Like, this is the best thing ever. Like, everyone is having such a good time and the vibes were amazing. And see, that's how you just like you make that bridge and you introduce people and like, yeah, see, like this is what I'm talking about. Like, like it's cool, it's fun, it's hip, it's not something to be like question about. It's not anything to be scared about. But I think it's interesting at the same time that you guys both used different words, not like ashamed, but also, just not as connected personally. And for me personally, what I always felt connected to growing up in regards to my culture that would remind me every day is my name. And that's a daily reminder of my culture, my identity. Every time I say my name, Chigo Zerum, it brings up the conversation. Oh, where are you from? Like, where is that from? Where's the origin? And Chigo Zerum means God has blessed me. And as soon as I tell people that, they're like, that's so beautiful. And that, that just transcends into your everyday life. And like, please tell me more about your culture. And, growing up, not that I found insecurity in my name, but the classic first day of school, roll call, new teacher, oh, these kids, my teacher's about to butcher my name and everyone's gonna make fun of me for it. And they get to the C's and there's a pause and you're like, yeah, it's me. I just raise my hand, and I'm like, yeah, it's Chigo. And then, everyone looks at you. But at one point in my life, I'm like, no, this is actually a great opportunity for me to educate people and show them something new and, something that's beautiful. So tell me a little about your guys' names and how you feel that, plays into your everyday life.
I think for me, obviously, my name is Chidera. If you didn't know, hello, Chidera. But my name essentially means God's destiny. Whatever He writes will happen. Um, that's important to me in itself. Take away the culture, everything, just because it's talking about God and that just to follow His paths. But specifically related to my culture, I've experienced the same thing as you, Chigo. Like every time there's a pause, right? When you know your name is about to come, I'm like, oh, here we go again. But I've learned to like actually love doing that, being like, it's Chidera, and like people think it's so beautiful, and just to explain where it comes from. And I'm so happy my parents didn't give me an American name because I I love it and it keeps you even more attached. And when people hear my name, sometimes like I'll meet somebody out at the store, they're like, what's your name? And they'll know I'm Nigerian, like we can have a conversation about it, stuff like that. So I think it's like all my children are gonna have Nigerian names. So I think it's very important to understand where your name comes from and just your culture in general. I'm just so fortunate to have parents who like reminded us of that every day.
Yes, I definitely agree. Chidera mentioned a great point about like it keeps you attached. My name means ask God, nah, ask Chi God. And I feel like it like I get to carry that around me as well. And like Chidera, you mentioned a great point about like you'll bump into a Nigerian at the store and they'll automatically know you're Nigerian because you say your name. And I just think it's so powerful. And I definitely want to give my children, Nigerian names as well, like keep the legacy moving. I just think it's very important. And I honestly love my name. I think it's so unique and it's great because we get to stand out in a positive way. I mean, there are some people who are ignorant and don't like want to try to like pronounce our names, but some people also just they embrace it and they love it so much. So it's honestly like it's very beautiful and I wouldn't want to change it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those were beautifully shared words. I agree completely. It just, again, it makes you stand out in the world. It's a blessing in disguise that our parents gifted us with. It's people won't forget your names and people will, it's an automatic credibility that comes with your name that's established from your family. And I always joke about it with people when I tell them my name's Chigo, they're like, that's so unique. Like, did your parents make it up? And I'm like, it's a really common name actually in Nigeria. Like for example, like my dad's name, like Emeka, like that's like the equivalent to like John in the US if you're talking American names. Like
Same with Chidera.
yeah, like it's or Chidera too. Yeah, like but to them it's because it's so out of the ordinary and it's not these like, like classic like English text names or biblical names that people hear every day. And that's why it's so shocking to them. But I know for me personally, I'm pretty sure I wrote my college admissions essay about my name and what it meant to me and like how I read my identity in it. And, my English teacher ate that up. Like she loved it. And I said, yes, like you don't even know, Queen. I got more to go. Sorry, I'm getting off
I
topic.
love that.
Um, do you guys have any like specific moments you want to share that with your parents that deciphered I'm not explaining this right. I'm scratch what I just said. Any specific moments or memories with your parents that just remind you of your pride in your culture and why you're so grateful to be Nigerian, like any moments at home in your house, any moments in Nigeria, any moments out in the world, or even like accolades and accomplishments your parents have done for themselves and making you feel so proud.
Yeah, I feel like for me and Chidera, you probably relate as well. Like our parents, just like they really set high expectations for us. Like even your parents, Chigo, like they really set the bar for all of us. And
Parents
you
are
know,
killing it. They're
they
killing
are,
it. Shout out our
our parents are
parents.
killing it. Yeah, and just to see them, like come from Nigeria all the way out here, start a family, and just level up in their careers and then have children to only set the same bar for us because we're all like doing our thing. I think it's just such a beautiful thing. And I want to carry that with my children, just like the high expectations, not even just with school, just like volunteering, starting businesses, like even just finding ways to give back to the community, like all that. It's just, and Nigerians have just such a huge rep for that type of thing. You'll meet, like, for example, like there was this chess like player or something and he won recently. Like we're always standing out, and like I feel like our parents really set that like bar for us. So I'm just very, very proud. Like we're really all doing our thing, and I'm very proud of all you guys. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have to echo that. I think what like commonly it'd be like when we go to parties and stuff, like I'm very like connected to our culture and I feel so proud to be Nigerian. But I think what Nachi said describes it perfectly for me. Just the amount of success that they want us to reach. They all that they've done for us is just for us to be the best that we can be more than what we thought was possible. I just remember like when I was younger, there's times I was just so annoyed with my parents. I'm like, why do they want me to do this? Like go to this extracurricular thing or do this. But I realized that they were pushing me to be where I am now. And because they know they're some of the most successful people I've ever met. So they know what it looks like and they know you can do it too. And that's just common in Nigerian culture, like not just in our families in particular. So just whenever I see like, someone won like the Olympic medal or someone like published this book that's Nigerian, I'm like, let's go. Like just another person to show the world just how amazing and successful we are. And like it begins with our parents and what they instilled in us when we were growing up, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for example, like our parents, they all hold education at the forefront of their minds. And, I really take that into my own life in regards to striving to get my master's and seeking higher education. My grandma, Dr. Azuka Chukwumerije, she received her PhD from USC. And when I tell people that my grandmother, especially in this country, when you tell someone that like a Black woman has a PhD,
Right.
like back in the day, she probably got it in what, the 80s? Like that is unheard of,
Yeah.
especially from like, I'm not going to gas up USC just because I went there, but from like, a credible institution, like it's insane. And it's something I hold pride myself, when I graduated, I was like, my grandma went to this school and like now we're both degree holders from here and it's a beautiful experience. I have this picture of my dad, my grandma at her graduation. And I was just thinking, I'm like, how difficult that would have been, as a mother of six in the 80s, leaving your children in Nigeria to seek an
Yeah.
education for yourself. Some people would view that as like selfish, but like my grandpa, who I'm also so blessed to say, he encouraged my grandma to seek out that education. And, because our family, Nigerians, value education and they understand the success that comes with that. And they don't want to hold you back in any aspect, and they only want to level you up more. So me in my life, my like life, not life goal, but like my purpose in life now is to like promote education for all in regards of any aspect, in regards of if that's a degree, that's a certification, if that's a program. I think knowledge is power and it takes individuals so much further than they think. And I don't know, but also at the same time, like academics, sometimes it's stressful, like mental
Yeah.
health. You gotta take care of yourself. Like, yeah, I know you're in college. I know you have a writing session after this. Like the duality of individuals, like we're like, yeah, it's education, but at the same time, you're like, do I really have to study more? Like, I'm tired. But at the same time, it's you can look up to those who are older and who have passed on. You can see their accolades and be like, wow, 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 like that's something I want to do. And it's impressive, This is actually so random, but at work, my boss, she is an MPH holder as well, and she actually used to work with your guys' dad, at like a
Oh,
previous job. And going into my job, just because of that relation, my boss was like, "Oh, if you're anything like your uncle, like Uncle Kendra, like you're gonna do well, like you're gonna strive. Like I have
Mm.
complete faith in you, like da da da." And yes, she still tested me as she should as my boss. She has to make sure I have some credibility to the
Right.
name. At the same time, it's cool because you kind of have like this established, pre-credibility coming in. And I was like, wow, just because of how hard my uncle works, it's somehow having an impact in my life today. Like the coincidences are crazy, but it just goes to show like how small this world is and how the actions you take in your everyday life truly do make a difference. And I don't know. I don't know.
Well said, Chigo.
No, it's crazy. Shout out your dad.
Shout out, father.
But I mean, it's insane and it's cool. It's cool. Well, I would say, I don't know. It's a beautiful thing. I could cry about it thinking about it, but I'm not going to cry because oh yeah, I'm not gonna cry. I won't let you guys get tears. You'll have to tune in for another episode. But my next question, so in regards to everyday actions in like the workplace and school settings, it's always funny because you again going back to that like dual consciousness comment, I always compare to myself on how I deliver messages in regards to like my white peers. For example, like talking to family friends and like my friends' parents. My friends' parents will like address the parent by their first name. Me personally, shoot to the back of the head.
Yep.
Immediately, like it's like drilled into my brain. And then I just think about that and it's like, aren't you just so proud that like your parents it's all in the name of discipline, but like yeah, they like took disciplinary actions at a young age to show you like you need to address people properly because it follows the way you lead your life. And I think I was calling one of my friends, I was like Mr. Blah 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 by their last name. And some kid was like, "Oh, why are you saying like Mr. Blah blah blah? His name's blah blah blah." And another mom stepped in and was like, "No, Chico, that's very respectful. Like, thank you for addressing him like that. Like, it shows you were raised, by like proper parents and you come from like an adequate family with good culture and all that." So I don't know if you guys have any experiences you want to share similar to that, where you can see your childhood and your upbringing reflect in your adult life.
I think being in college, I see it every day. Like some of
Hey,
these
these
kids
people
are,
carry themselves is
they
crazy.
act a fool, like they act a fool. And I'm just like, if I did any of this in my household, like it just would not fly. And like just moments, even just like taking like cleanliness and like taking care of yourself. But also, yes, just how you address people, especially adults, like not even just I agree with the name thing. Like I always address them by Mr. and Mrs. this. And then a lot of the times they're like,
Uncle and
no, call me
auntie, da
Ann or
da
call
da.
me Jess or something. I'm like, okay, like
Title.
yeah. But then it's also just like how you interact with people and knowing the right time when to say things. And I think when you're younger, you maybe won't have as much of an appreciation for that as when I guess now I'm in college and I feel like I'm in a great place to like be glad that I was raised in the way I am and that I think it's obviously way better to be overly respectful of people and like maybe risk them telling you to call you something different than the opposite. So I'm very because that's exactly how we raising my children. Like, yes, when we were younger, it was seen as strict, and we're like, oh, my parents are so strict. But like, looking back, they were not strict. Like, they were just teaching you how to live your life and be respectful and
Mhm.
how to address people, just common decency, honestly. So
Mhm.
I've just see that reflected in so many instances, especially these past few years.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like growing up, like I feel like my parents, they like not that we couldn't do anything, but it was just like be back at 10, be back at this time. And I used to always think like, you guys don't want me to have fun, like I can't do anything. Da, 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 da. But as I get older, I see why they did that and why there were restrictions because I feel like if I was raised differently, like I'm not saying I would be in a totally completely different person, but who knows what path I would have, gone into. Like people are, doing things they're not supposed to, having children at like 16, like all that. So I just think it's important that our parents raised us properly. They did. like I'm glad like Nigerian parents really, yeah. So
They really went off. Like they didn't have to do it like
it's
that, but they
true.
went off. And
Uh,
I always say like your children are an investment. And look at us, we're cashing out. Like we are.
I agree. And I want to like say something like kind of that's related to that and wonder if you guys like experienced that just kind of like having to navigate like the fact that our parents were born in not only a different time period but a whole different country and how like you've had to change to kind of like be understanding of that because I feel like when I was younger it was just kind of like why are we doing things in this way? Because you're like used to American culture. But then as I've gotten older, I've like had to sit and think like they literally were born and raised in a specific way. Like this is why they're acting this way. But also, I've loved how my parents were able to also understand that we were also born in America and it's a different time period. So it's kind of like this push and pull of having to like understand each other and it like
Oh,
Yeah.
continues as we grow up, which I think has been like I don't know, I've just had so many reflection periods recently, so I've I've just been like noticing all of this. So yeah, I
no,
just
I
wonder if you guys have any examples of that.
Yeah, no, I actually an example that immediately came to my mind was when I was younger. My parents would never let me sleep over at anyone's house, and I used to get
Right.
so upset because I was like, "Mom, these girls are having all these slumber parties. If I don't go, I'm not going to be in." Like, da 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 da. And now I get it. I'm like, you don't know people. People,
Yeah.
you don't know what goes on in people's homes. Like your parents were doing that not to spite you, but to protect you. And there's a lot of things like, now that, my frontal lobe has developed a little more and I can like have and be logical. And I understand, I'm like, no, my parents were always working in my best interest and, for future me. And again, investing in me. And it's crazy, to think about like, our parents, like they're still, it's their first time being parents, so you have to give them a little grace, and they don't understand us perfectly, we don't understand them perfectly, we're all learning together, and it's a beautiful experience at the same time because once you have those realizations, it's so fulfilling and it warms my heart truly. Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, well, thank you, queens, besties,
Thank
sisters, cousins,
you.
for having this conversation. I mean, it really just, now my wheels are turning and I just want to go like pencil all my thoughts down in a journal. I don't know.
So,
Oh God.
so many
Oh
great
God.
points.
I
No
have
one
to
will
go
ever
do
find
my
out.
writing
I'm gonna,
assignment. I can't
yeah,
even think
I'm gonna
about
burn
writing.
the journal after. But I know you have to go because Miss Chidera, an academic scholar, needs to go study and get back to writing. And Nachi, our supermodel, she has to go, be pretty and whatever.
Please.
All right. Well,
This
thank you.
was a great podcast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, hope to see y'all soon at the
Yeah.
reunion.
Yeah, we're gonna be coming out. Oh,
We'll
we
see
can
you
have July
guys
4th, LA. All right.
Have a
Bye.
great week.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.